chicks had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Here, take the bomb.
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of the Peasants Perspective. So glad you made it. Carlito, Tiffany, happy days and rain. You must be up in the Northeast still, or have you made it back? Good, Carlitos, good morning. So glad you made it. We'll give you guys, we got more people on YouTube right now than Rumble. That is incredible. That has never happened. Never happened. I'm pretty sure we are just flat out persona non grata in YouTube. That's pretty amazing. Oh, good morning, everybody. I'm glad you're piling on in. I know it's bright and early, 6:30 a.m. Pacific time, Monday through Friday, and TGIF Friday, Ron. You walked in here this morning, you're like, I'm so glad it's Friday.
Well, I just had a rough night, that's all. I only slept like 5.
Like 5 out of 7 nights, it's a rough night for you.
I know.
Like Monday through Friday, it was a rough night. You don't have a good night until you can sleep in. That's how it works. Pony Boy, good morning. We got our home sauna up and running. So this morning I woke up at 4 a.m., went and turned it on because it needs like 30 minutes to heat up.
Nice.
And then I went back in there, sat down, got a nice big sweat. It was kind of nice. Yeah. I even took a morning shower after that. I'm an evening shower person. So
bonus.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be a 2 shower a day kind of guy now, morning and night. But super excited. Pony Boy, good morning. Pony Boy, how's the oil fields? Are we just pumping and pumping and pumping? Is there been a notable difference in production since Donald Trump came into office? I'm just curious. He's down there in Texas running from oil field to oil field. That's kind of fun. All right, you guys, I know why you guys all show up bright and early. It's for the simultaneous sip. And even if you listen after the fact, tip your glass or mug. You can join us for the simultaneous sip in spirit. We did it for you bright and early in the morning. And what you need is a cup or a mug or a glass, a tankard, a chalice, a stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure of the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better. It's the simultaneous sip, and it starts right now.
Before you get into an argument, remember this quote. A bee does not waste its energy trying to convince a fly that honey is better than shit. Some minds are not meant to be changed. Save your energy for what actually matters.
Absolutely. Save your energy for what actually matters. You know, one of the things I really love as I've been getting more and more into the political remodel project is this idea of the absurd, right? We just accept these absurdities if it's just normal everyday life. So we're going to start out today talking about some absurd things. And then we're going to talk about the glaringly evident that everybody can see, but they choose not to, as Ayn Rand describes. We're going to talk a lot about the economy today. Okay. So this right here is a little interview. This is an old interview between George Stephanopoulos and James Comey. Now, knowing everything we know now about the Russian dossier, knowing everything we know now about his leaking, knowing everything we know now about what was going on, setting that up, and the involvement of Barack Obama, directing the intelligence community to create a report with the following goals, even after they had been told it was all false. This interview was done kind of before that stuff was in the mainstream, before it was like we had the smoking gun documents. And this is what it says. This is James Comey in his own words. You want to talk about projection, right? This is the don't try to convince what was it a honeybee that is a honey or something like that. I can't remember the video we just watched during the simultaneous sip, right? When you're talking to leftists, we're talking people on the far left that are deeply infected with Trump derangement system. They just don't get it. They still believe stuff like this.
Now he's sharing his story about standing at the crossroads of the most controversial election in modern history.
You say it's a dangerous time in our country.
I think it is. And I chose those words carefully. I was worried when I chose the word dangerous first. I thought, is that an overstatement? And I don't think it is.
Why not?
I worry that the norms at the center of this country, we can fight as Americans about guns or taxes or immigration, and we always have. But what we have in common is a set of norms, most importantly, the truth. And if we lose that, if we lose tethering of our leaders to that truth? What are we?
Did you tell him that the Steele dossier had been financed by his political opponents?
No. I didn't even think I used the term Steele dossier. I just talked about additional material.
But did he have a right to know that?
That had been financed by his political opponents? I don't know the answer to that. It wasn't necessary for my goal, which was to alert him that we had this information.
Did you believe his denial?
Honestly, never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but I don't know whether the current president of the United States was with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow in 2013. It's possible.
Now, we know he knew from day one that it was all fake. So I don't know. My goal was just to extort him, is basically what he just said. In fact, that's how Donald Trump reacted when he came into the Oval Office and was like, hey, we've got a dossier and, the Russians have blackmail on you. But if you want us to keep it a secret. And Trump was like, am I getting a shakedown? Is this an old mobster shakedown? You're fired. Right. And it set off the nuclear explosion in Washington, D.C. that became the RussiaGate scandal. As Patrick Byrne had described it, just like with Hillary Clinton, they wanted to have a little scandal on her, and it was like a Bunsen burger. If she did anything with the Affordable Care Act or anything to
just turn it up a little bit,
Barack Obama's agenda, they could just turn on the Bunsen burner. Well, that's what they tried to manufacture for Trump. Some scandal that he didn't want to deal with, that they could put the Bunsen burner under the beaker and get that water boiling. And Trump was just
wasn't
like
having it.
Yeah, as Kennedy says, he's got oranges the size of beach balls, right? He's like, no, you're fired. So that's what we've been living through. Ponyboy says, I do see a lot of drilling rigs, but don't keep track of the rig count. But it's definitely more busy than usual, not just the big oil companies, but the mom pop company as well. Yeah, exactly, Ponyboy. He had to alert him that we have blackmail on you. And Trump was like, I've never peed on hookers. I'm a germaphobe. Pray the Rosary Daily. Glad you make it. It is Friday. It's a good one. Now, Dan Bongino did the podcast interview with Sean Hannity. Mm-hmm. I love how all the news guys that have like a news show also have a podcast show that anchor them. So if you're a diehard Hannity fan, you can go listen to it, which I mean, it makes sense. Hannity would do 3 hours a day on the radio and then an hour on TV. That's 4 hours a day, Ron. We're slacking here. We should really step up.
I am getting tired of the radio guys going, check me on the YouTubes, on the Insta and everything else. And it's like, oh, geez.
Just stay in your lane, man. Stay in your lane.
Terrestrial radio.
So here's Dan Bongino, former deputy director of the FBI, former Secret Service agents, and, as he calls himself, the podcast king or whatever. His show's not doing as well as it once was. No. A lot of people are kind of upset with him. And you know what? We'll see. We'll see the redemption arc here. It's very possible that Dan Bongino did great things inside the FBI.
I think he did. I think it's just his eyes.
I think it's just his eyes. And I think it's the Epstein didn't kill himself.
Right, exactly.
I'm afraid they're going to come for me.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So this is Dan Bongino talking about the messages that FBI agents sent each other using government servers and just the brazenness of it and how they were just, frankly, anti-American.
Why do you think they left? Because there was like better pickings on the outside? They left because they were afraid we were going to discover what they, and a lot of them we did. We had to fire a lot of them. Some left voluntarily. Some left the minute Cash was sworn in. So there's nothing we could do. Like they were already, you can't like rehire them to fire them, nor would you. But we would open up investigations on things where we suspected there was weaponization, and you would read some of these emails. And first thing, honestly, that came to mind, it's not, I'm making light of it, but you'd be like, what a moron. This is an FBI system, you dipshit. Are you this stupid? You wrote this on an FBI system. That was the first. Cash and I would sit there. I'm telling you, we'd be scratching our heads like, did this moron just put, didn't it? It's a government system. You didn't realize this was being logged? So after you...
By the way, you have the technology to retrieve it.
Of course. And some of the stuff, they were stunned because there's a lot of different comm systems in the FBI. There's levels. There's like low side, medium side, high side, like high side. And some of these people thought we couldn't find this stuff, which was just crazy. We would read some of their emails, and after you got over the just pure stupidity of it, you'd be like, brother, like you just sound like you're the FBI. The FBI. I'm telling you, I walked in there very humble.
So I walked in there very humble, but they were knowingly doing that stuff, right? Like anti-American. We're going to cover it a little bit later, a weaponization of government report going after Catholics and Christians. Absolutely stunning. Here's another clip. Again, when you're dealing with leftists that have just bought into this American socialist system, this you can have your freedom allegedly, right? Like you could pretend to be free, but you're really not free. Going back to COVID, right? We've had some COVID revelations this week. We had that indictment earlier this week. It was a big deal. It was about covering up the source of the Wuhan virus, the coronavirus, that it did in fact come from the lab, but they created it came out of nature in a bat or a pangolin or some nonsense like that, right? And what did that do? It made it so that we couldn't go after China. It also made it so that people were readily willing to accept the COVID vaccine because this thing came out of nature. It's this morphed virus. If we knew it had come out of a lab, people probably wouldn't have taken the vaccine, right? Our awareness of Machiavellian politics might have kicked in.
It would have changed the calculus quite a bit.
Yeah. And just like the FBI thought, it'll never be found out. You have the same thing going on in our medical establishment.
I do not see vigilance at work. With VAERS, the CDC chose to ignore its own standard operating procedure and not run proportional reporting ratios in favor of the FDA's, what Walensky calls more robust and Shimabukuro calls the gold standard. VAERS had been grossly underreported for the first 30 years, maxing out at 58,000 reports. In its 31st year alone, VAERS logged 18 times that number. Because of this disproportionality, the FDA's disproportionality analysis was washed out. Since both vaccines were of the same platform and same adverse events, the comparison was muted. This isn't a blind spot. The FDA was completely blind to adverse events, and the CDC wasn't even looking. There was a savior in the ranks of the FDA who correctly identified the problem, appropriately worked with the inventor of EB data mining to create a solution, communicated the fix to everyone who would listen. The problem is no one listened.
So you've got a medical establishment that was completely ignoring the side effects.
On purpose.
Imagine a government agency that's tasked with keeping Americans safe and healthy that doesn't care about your safety and health. What's their motivation? Probably money and power.
Luck was not on our side. The CDC failed to look. The FDA failed to fix a broken system that the CDC touted as the gold standard. The HHS failed to protect us, especially after our freedom of choice was assaulted by the president threatening us all with, "Our patience is wearing thin." FOIA evasion was well practiced and discovered, obviously, not through a FOIA. Simply put, during the largest pharmaceutical rollout in human history, pharmacovigilance did not exist. That is the betrayal of our time. So vast that we cannot even count its casualties.
So vast that we can't even count its casualties. And that's Karl Jablonowski, PhD, Director of Science and Research, testifying before Congress. So vast, we couldn't even count its casualties. We will never, ever know the death toll. We'll never know it. We'll never know the side effects. People that will deal with chronic issues the rest of their life, we'll never know.
Everybody wants to put their head in the sand too, and just pretend like it's not still happening. It's still happening. There are still side effects happening every day.
Yes, and that's the crazy thing. Like, we're health and human services that had nothing to do with health or humanity, right? I mean, that's just what it boils down to. You've got FBI agents using government servers to completely, attack the American people. You've got James Comey, who's trying to blackmail the president over a complete hoax. You have the CDC, CDC, HHS, NIH, and FDA turning a complete blind eye to the death toll. And then we had this yesterday. This is a Democrat senator, Senator Reed, and he's talking to Pete Hegseth, and he's criticizing Christianity and nationalism.
Of course.
Again, when you're talking to a leftist, they just don't care, man. They have totally accepted the absurdity of all of this.
Intense interest in Christianity, in nationalism, and in not recognizing the talents of women and non-white gentlemen, and that's the wrong direction.
I don't know what you're insinuating, Senator, but I am not ashamed of my faith in Jesus Christ.
Well, you shouldn't be.
And
ashamed.
if you want to shame me for it, go ahead.
I've got an old clip with Senator Kaine where he talks about our fundamental rights don't come from God. They come from government. Iran thinks they come from God. And it's like, what? I thought I was endowed with certain inalienable rights by my creator, and my creator is not government. Okay? At best, it's mommy and daddy. Okay? Doug Wyatt, good morning, peasants. Glad you made it. I'm so glad you're here. Now, we have a solution to all of this. Okay. It's just absurd. When I get in our local Kitsap County Republican meeting and candidates who are getting ready to run for office stand up and they go, I can appeal to left voters. I can appeal to Democrats. I'm like, even the Democrats don't want to appeal to Democrats. The Democrats in, my local district are going to run a guy that walks around with a pocket constitution. Okay? Like, they don't even want to appeal to Democrats. So when I see Republicans being like, oh, I want to appeal to Democrats, it's like, dude, you've lost the plot. You've given up the ground. You've given up the fight. You've accepted this all as it is. It doesn't have to be this way. We don't have a government that's weaponized against us. So Donald Trump has an absolutely great plan on how to turn things around. And I think this is almost at this point exactly what we need to do. Lean into it. We need to really lean into it.
Like always unanimous. The Democrats, they will vote against anything, no matter how good. If they had their favorite thing in the world and we happen to want it, but we found a new strategy, we're going to oppose every single thing that we want, and we'll get unanimous votes. So I'm going to come up and oppose everything, Brian, from this point forward, and they'll vote for it. Go ahead.
Second question.
I think that's it. We just need to lean into it. No, we need more government censorship. And if you say that to a leftist, they'll be like, no, we don't really need more government censorship. No, we need all of it. We need a Ocasio.
Hold on. We need none.
Yeah, we need it. Senator Kennedy, who gave us the great quote, Trump's oranges are the size of beach balls. I don't know if he's got like a plantation down in Florida or what he's got going on there, but he's talking about Keir Starmer. Now, remember, a couple days ago, we read about the 3 types of socialism. You've got totalitarian socialism, which is like the communist system. It's open, it's blatant. If you oppose us, dead, prison, whatever. Okay. Then you've got European socialism, which is like, hey, we're all a big family, and don't worry, the elite, the technocrats, the oligarchs, we know best. We're smarter than you guys. Okay. Look at how much money we have, but that's okay. We'll take care of you. You've got that model. And then you've got the American model, which is, hey, you guys are free, central bank, corporatocracy, you can choose whichever cell phone provider you want, AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon. And those 3 all are essentially one company, right?
Which system has the leaders that like Coke?
Cocaine? Yeah. I think that's all of them, frankly. I think that's all of them. Okay.
Just checking.
So this is John Kennedy spilling the beans here. The American Democrats want us to go more socialist. They want us to be more like Europe. And he compares his Democrat colleagues on how much they love Keir Starmer because he's just barely left of Lenin.
What my Democratic colleagues really like is Keir Starmer, who's the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, who is just to the left of Lenin. He's very unpopular with the people of UK. He's Poland right up there with gonorrhea. I don't know how much longer he can last, but this guy, he would give Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez a run for her money in terms of his loony woke ideas.
Absolutely. That's the thing, right? European leftism is the direction our country wants to go. And it's just shy of totalitarianism.
No thanks.
We don't spend a ton of time talking about the problems in Europe, but every country has a mass migration problem. Every country has a debt problem. They have a national defense problem. They can't defend themselves. They have an energy problem, right? Like, what problems don't they have? They've got them all. They've got censorship to the umpteenth degree. I mean, UK, what was the stats? Like 18,000 prisoners over free speech violations. In America, we're floating around a few hundred, and you kind of get a little sketchy on some of those. But 18,000, it's just they're blatant and open. And
I don't know what their currency's like. Do they have a printer like we got?
Yeah, they have a printer like we got. They borrow ours. I think they have a Wi-Fi connection or something. Now, the other thing that happens over in Europe is there's mass gun control, especially in Britain, right? In fact, their gun control laws are so strict that criminals will use knives. So now they're doing knife control laws. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember that clip where the guy's like, this machete, this is terrifying. And I'm like, that thing looks dull. I've got Boy Scouts that have had bigger machetes than that. You know what I mean? Like, all you need to do is get a totem chip. You'll be fine.
Check out my blood circle.
Check out my blood circle. Exactly. But literally, they're outlawing the carrying of knives because criminals will use knives. There's an interesting correlation between criminality and crime. You know, it doesn't matter what you make illegal. They're going to carry the knife. They're going to carry the guns. I remember years and years ago when one of the school shootings happened, and it was a tragic shooting. It was one of the big ones. It was like 21 kids or something like that were killed. I honestly can't remember the school shooting, but I remember going through the news of the day. And on that very same day in America, somebody used a gun in a school to commit mass violence. In China, somebody in a school took a knife and killed the exact same number of children on the same day. The same day. Right. And I remember thinking, this has nothing to do with guns. This has to do with mental health. This has to do with nihilism. This has nothing to do with the weapon. This has to do with criminals, right? And the response to every act of violence in our country that has involved guns is leftists have tried to take guns. And the result of that is law-abiding citizens get caught up in those gun laws. Criminals don't care, man. Like, they're already criminals. Once you cross that Rubicon, they're just like, whatever, I'll carry guns. You know, I don't see a lot of drug dealers that are smart enough not to carry guns. In fact, I used to joke in prison, like, man, if you're going to go to prison or do drugs or guns, pick one. Don't combine the two. Okay? Because your sentence gets doubled. So yesterday there was actually, I think this was 2 days ago. There was a huge announcement by the acting Attorney General Todd Blanche and the ATF director and everything. They appointed a new ATF director, but they also got a huge rollback in gun laws and how the executive branch is going to prosecute, law-abiding gun owners. This is a really big deal. So at this point, you need to understand Trump is winning. But a lot of these things, listen, we didn't build this corrupt temple in 5 years. This is 100 years, right? This is like 1913 and then finalized in 1933. We became American socialists, corporatists, or whatever you want to call it. And so there's been an erosion of our rights all this time. It's not like you can turn all this around the first 2 weeks Trump's in office. For the doomers out there, you need to recognize a lot of this stuff. You've got to cut down the tree, plant the new seeds, weed, water, repeat, right? It's going to take time. But this is one of those big steps being taken when it comes to our gun rights.
We listen to industry leaders, many of whom are in this room behind me, to legal experts, and most importantly, to law-abiding gun owners across this country. People who follow the rules, but have been forced to navigate a system that often didn't make sense. The package that we're putting forward today and over the coming days reflects all of those voices. It includes 34 proposed rules, more than ATF has issued in the last 15 years combined. It reflects months of work since the beginning of this administration, and I want to be candid right now about why this is necessary. For too long, regulations were written without any real understanding of how firearms businesses operate, how lawful gun owners actually handle their firearms, or what truly improves public safety. We listen to industry.
Isn't that great? Right? Because you got a lot of gun manufacturers that have been handcuffed with the rules and regulations. And the ATF, who creates these rules vis-a-vis the Chevron deference doctrine, have no idea how these companies operate.
Well, I think they'd love to sell guns to people like me who can't buy them because of Washington State.
I know, it's horrible here. It's like bolt actions only, basically.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing here is, unlike the pharmaceutical industry where people go from big pharma into the FDA and back and forth, ATF and the DOJ has had a complete ban on anybody coming out of the gun industry to come in and work with them, and just have rejected lobbying. I mean, the NRA, Pierre, whatever his name was at the NRA, he did some stupid money things. But have you heard about the NRA much recently?
No.
They were basically obliterated by DOJ targeting, right? Just totally obliterated. Here's another thing. You don't think we're winning? Here's another big rollback. Again, sunlight is the best disinfectant. And we have to remember There was a significant change, that Chevron deference case, which allowed executive branch agencies to create rules and stuff like that. When it was overturned by the Loper-Bright decision, now as these rules get removed, it's going to take a full vote of the legislature and a signature by the president to put any of these rules back. So that's one of the reasons why this presidency, Donald Trump's, is so consequential in this period of time. For every rule or regulation he puts away, they cannot all be just restored by the next president with a stroke of a pen. Okay, that is one of the most significant things that a lot of people totally miss. And you might be hearing this from me for the first time.
Yeah, I am right now.
Yeah, this is a big, big deal. Big deal. Because the legislature is going to have to flex their muscle to actually change things. So here was from the Department of Justice. They had in their weaponization working group, they released a report. So these are examples of anti-Christian bias in the DOJ during the Biden administration. The Biden DOJ aggressively opposed the concerned parents through the Garland memo and used its enforcement authority against parents who defended their children's safety at local school board meetings. They aggressively opposed concerns. Next, the Biden DOJ immediately went to work to mandate the adoption of gender ideology throughout the federal government, far beyond the Supreme Court's ruling in Bostock versus Clayton County. The Biden DOJ also considered requests for religious exemptions related to gender ideology as harmful conduct to be regulated and pushed its incorrect Bostock interpretation in amicus briefs, even though federal courts repeatedly rejected it. So the court says don't do it, and they're like, okay, we're just going to keep doing it. The Biden DOJ advised White House and senior leadership that federal employees' religious objections to the COVID vaccines were, quote, insincere or not religious. The Civil Rights Division sidelined Christians in favor of preferred constituencies. So the Trump administration has reversed some of this.
Hold on, I think we forgot one. I mean, wasn't there? Can we fit the IRS targeting of Christian entities in that list?
Churches, conservative groups. Yeah, that's definitely one too. This was just DOJ. That was IRS.
Oh, okay.
So now this Department of Justice is protecting religious liberty. So this is the new standards that the Department of Justice is working under. The Trump DOJ is protecting parental rights by rescinding the Garland memo and taking legal actions to protect students, including a lawsuit to stop the Loudoun County School, that's it up in Virginia, district from unlawfully forcing gender ideology on students who have sincerely held religious beliefs on marriage and human sexuality, as it should be. The Trump DOJ has returned the DOJ to law and order by rescinding the Biden Bostock policies. As a result, all people of faith may once again freely exercise their faith. The Trump DOJ is protecting religious liberty in the federal workplace by issuing an Office of Legal Counsel opinion affirming religious liberty protections for federal employees, which includes accommodation requests. The Trump DOJ is ending the weaponization of the FACE Act. That's the act that they would prosecute abortion protesters with, by protecting houses of worship. So the way the FACE Act was working was they only protected abortion clinics, even though in order to get that bill passed originally, they also threw in and houses of worship, but they never prosecuted anybody who protested or did anything violent in a house of worship. But now Don Lemon and his 39 friends are all facing FACE Act charges for going into a Christian church and protesting, right? So they've kind of reversed that. The Civil Rights Division has filed statements of interest supporting faith communities in Relupia cases across the country. Big, big difference. You want to know another huge difference that Trump is doing? He is putting judges in place that I think have a level head. Okay. Now, keep in mind, judges are typically the most conservative people you can think. They might have really wild ideologies, but generally they're not rhetorical. They're not bombastic. They're very reserved in their words. These are lawyers. Does that make sense? So it doesn't mean they're not radical.
They're applications of law masters.
They're application of law masters, and they're really good at making sure their words kind of fit within a box. So again, they might be wildly radical, but they figure out a way to make their opinions seem not radical, right? So here is a panel of judges. These are Article 3 judges appointed for life to the various U.S. district courts doing their Senate judiciary hearing. And Senator Dick Blumenthal, Denang Dick, as Trump likes to call him, Dick Blumenthal, the guy who lied about serving in Vietnam. I don't know how you lie about serving overseas in the military for years and years and years and then get exposed and then turn around and still get elected to the Senate.
Oh, okay.
That's what blows my mind. Like, he is crying, I'm sorry, I wasn't really in Vietnam. And you go play all the clips and it's like, when I was Vietnam hiding from Charlie, you know, dude, you were never there. Like, this is crazy. Anyways, he is asking these judges if Joe Biden won the 2020 election.
Won the 2020 election.
I'd say that that President Biden was certified the winner of the 2020 election.
He won the election. Is that your response?
Senator, I think my response is he was certified as the winner by counting the election.
So you're unwilling to say he won the election. How about you, Mr. Roberts?
I have this same answer as my colleague, Senator.
Same answer as the previous one?
The previous nominee. The Senate did.
Mr. Coons, how about you?
Thank you, Senator. And I have the same answer as Mr.
Same answer. Unwilling to say that Joe Biden won the election, correct?
As Mr. Hendershot said, it has become a matter of political concern, and Joe Biden.
Well, it's a matter of political concern, but it's also an issue of fact. Is it not?
Fact, like Trump was peeing on Russian hookers. Same fact.
Not?
Joe Biden was, in fact, certified the winner of the 2020 election.
Mr. Mark?
Same answer, Senator.
I am
a bunch of pussies.
Amazed and really appalled that nominees for a lifetime appointment to the federal bench are unwilling to respond on an issue of fact. And I'm not going to try to get an answer out of you because clearly you've been rehearsed to provide a stock answer, which I think really reflects not only on your honesty, but really on your fitness to be a federal judge, because you are supposed to be independent and to arrive at the truth based on the evidence before you. And I think it's pretty irrefutable that Joe Biden won the election, but you're unwilling to use that word because you are afraid. You are afraid of what? President Trump? That is exactly what we do not need on the federal bench today. We need jurists who are fearless and strong, not weak and pathetic. I can't tell you how disappointed I am. We can disagree on issues of law. We can disagree on issues of fact, but for you to simply avoid a factual and responsive answer, I think is a disrespect to this committee as well as to us. Who won?
That makes me so happy. Are you telling me the judges that Trump is appointing won't admit or say that Biden won the election? I mean, yeah, he was certified, but 20 million extra votes from Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama? Like, are you freaking kidding me? You know what I mean? Do you see how things change? Those judges impact people's lives. Imagine if I had sat in front of one of those judges. He would have been like, yeah, you shouldn't riot, but your cause and why you were protesting, that's a non-issue. Do you see what I'm saying? Instead, the judges we got were like, Biden won the election. You guys are all idiots. You see, it's a completely different mentality. Now, I understand their legalese. Look, Joe Biden was certified. That is a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Did he win the election in a genuine, like, electoral win? Like, from voters? I mean, they had a lot of ballots. I don't know about voters. Marty Easel says, memories, we are in Evanston, Wyoming. Oh, Evanston, Wyoming. It's one of my funnest places when I was a kid. I worked at a scout camp just south of Evanston, Wyoming. So that's where we'd go on the weekends and go to a little Mexican restaurant in town, and I'd get the fajita quesadilla. It was great. All right. So here's the thing. There's a lot of rhino Republicans. What does rhino mean? It means Republican in name only. right? They're rhino Republicans, but they pander to the left. These are the candidates that stand up and go, I think I can appeal to the left. Why would you appeal to the left? Is that because you share some ideologies? Is that because you're not actually a conservative? Is that because you don't want to be a stalwart for Republican
you're just
values? Corrupt. Or you're just corrupt, right? I can appeal to Democrats. Like, what are we talking about here? This is absurd. You're running for the Republican ticket. We have no interest in people who are going to go play footsies with the enemy, the people that are trying to take your guns, take your religious freedom, shove a vaccine down your throat, and pretend like the president was peeing on hookers and think that Joe Biden won the election. Right?
They're trying to snatch your babies. Huh? They're trying to snatch up your babies.
Trying to snatch up our babies. You know, it's interesting. We're not going to play this today, but Planned Parenthood has gotten busted because they were taking money and kickback, you know, money. But in their emails on their government servers, that they were, instead of writing Planned Parenthood for where the money was going, they were writing Benghazi.
Oh.
Yeah. So that would avoid FOIA, right? Give me all the information on Planned Parenthood.
Okay.
The Benghazi emails don't show up. Okay? But people who were looking for Benghazi were like, what are they talking about? Transferring money to a Benghazi in Chicago, right? Isn't it interesting? Planned Parenthood, they would code name Benghazi, kind of like it was just one big slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting, the comparison? Mm-hmm. So this is Mark Halperin on his podcast Two Way, and he's talking about the upcoming midterms, and he's talking about Republicans losing the Senate. And Republicans, these are the Republicans that have to appeal to the left. Trump is, this is my interpretation, Trump is so dominant in actually getting his agenda forward and stopping these long-term Democrat agendas that these rhino Republicans that try to appeal to the left, they don't think they can get those votes anymore because the left is coalescing around their far left candidates because they're so infected with TDS that these middle ground Republicans are feeling the heat and they think they're going to lose.
Don't accuse me of burying the lead, but this could have been the lead. The Republican Party's in a heap of trouble, potentially. What I'm about to spring out for you here, this is not a prediction. This is not something that can't change. And this is not something I wish for because I don't have rooting interest here. But I'm telling you, we've got some data points today. The Republican Party may be in a lot of trouble. The midterms could be. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying could be. And there are people in the Republican Party, including Newt Gingrich, who would tell you that this is true. And they don't want it to happen. It could be a bloodbath. It could be a blue bloodbath in November. Plenty of time for things to change. Republicans have some ideas about how to change it. But I'm going to tell you some things now that suggest that this could be a nightmare. They could lose control of the Senate. You've never heard me say that. I've said just the opposite. They could lose more than 30 House seats. They could lose governor's races. No one's expecting them to lose. Let me tell you what's going on. First, just a mess on Capitol Hill. Here's the Politico headline. Johnson and Thune are just, they get along, but man, they're having internal problems. Hill Republicans want Trump to solve their internal problems. Growing frustration among Senate Republicans and Trump allies that the House hasn't yet take up their funding of the Department of Homeland Security. There's also, as we said before, other things that the House is having trouble moving. Now, voters don't really care about this, but Republicans who think they're in trouble would like some accomplishments, and there's just a big logjam on the Hill. They're waiting for the president to fix that. Then there's this poll out this morning from Emerson, 123, please. And again, it's one poll, but Democrats hold a 10-point advantage in the generic ballot question. 124, please. Here you can see the numbers, and those of you watching can see back in July of 25, it was 44-42 Democrats. Then it was 43 all. And then it was pretty even up until this January when it went to 6, then 8, then 7, now 10-point generic advantage. And this one may be the biggest canary in the coal mine of all, ladies and gentlemen. Just as I've been a leader in saying the chances of Democrats taking the Senate are highly overstated and overrated, I've also said Mr. Tallarico is not going to be the Democrat who breaks the decades-long streak of no Democrat winning statewide in Texas because he is extremely liberal. However, a new poll from Texas Tribune, 119, shows Mr. Tallarico ahead within the margin of error of both John Cornyn and Ken Paxton, beating Paxton by 5 in this poll, Cornyn by 3. If the environment is horrible for Republicans, if the president's approval rating is down in Texas, and if Tallarico is the one who finally does what Democrats who've tried to win statewide have been trying to do, get every liberal to vote, win over independents, and get some Republicans because he's religious, he could win. I know.
And here's why. It has nothing to do in my opinion. I mean, Mark Halpern, he reads these polls, he kind of takes them all like they're gospel. Some of these polls are completely rigged and stuff like that.
We've seen polls like this before. I mean, Hillary Clinton was going to take it away, and so was Harris.
Yeah. But Republicans want Republicans to be Republicans. So if you're polling and it's John Cornyn or it's Senator Casey or it's Mitt Romney, who's now gone, right? They don't poll well with independents and Democrats, and they definitely don't poll well with MAGA. And MAGA is not going to show up to vote for them, essentially conceding the race to the left. That's the problem. It's the rhino Republicans that don't lean into Trump's agenda that are trying to still work with the left. Republicans are not going to support them. And that's going to be the thing that is the problem in the midterms. It's not going to be Trump's agenda. It's not going to be Trump's accomplishments. It's that these Republicans didn't get on board with it and take the wins. You have the majorities. You could pass anything you want. You could nuke the filibuster. Who's standing in the way of that? Does that make sense? And that's what Republicans are going to be like. We're just not going to show up for that guy. Trump's not on the ballot. We're not showing up for Murkowski. We're not showing up for Collins, Cassie, Cornyn. And you can go, there's a whole nother list of them, right? That's what they oppose. Because every other indication is we have massive wins. Like, for example, that voter rights bill with racial gerrymandering, the majority of the minorities, right? It was overturned. This hands the Republicans some seats in 2026, but a lot of seats in 2028.
In fact, can we put up, I want that chart. You're saying there's actually 23 seats, including the ones that we've already taken down in places like Florida and in Texas. But totally in this cycle, the pickup total should be 23 seats, ma'am.
Yes, it is. And that's just what is left. It could be more than that if, states like Indiana hadn't have botched this. And so there's several more that you could pick up because of this VRA ruling in 2028. A couple of them have like Dem governors who would veto it, but it could be challenged in court. Now, a court challenge is not going to give a remedy ahead of the 2026 election. And so I think, total, it could be as many as 28, 29 seats. We'll see. But right now there are 23 seats that I see on the map that we could have gotten or could go get tomorrow, and is an absolute game changer.
This is a game changer. This changes everything, folks. This is why when we went to Texas and Virginia, we're saying, hey, look, don't black pill. The cavalry's on its way. You see it right here, but the establishment has to get off their butts and get something done. Stick right there. Caroline, remember.
The establishment has to get off their butts and get something done. The map just changed completely. That many pickups, we're good. That many pickups, we will rock and roll. So why are Republicans nervous? Because they know they have been running on, I appeal to the left. And you know what they don't appeal to when you appeal to the left? The right. The right. Because what does the left believe in? Joe Biden won the election. Christians are bad. Nationalists are horrible. Fiscal responsibility. Well, what's in it for me? You know what I mean? Like, they don't like that. So that's the risk. It's the independent candidates, the Republicans, that could lose the Republican votes if they don't turn to the right. You need to embrace your voters, the people who put you in office, your majority. Why are you pandering to the minority? Republicans have stood behind Trump and voted down ballot every time he's been on the ballot. And they've put in some candidates that we had to, as I think Steve Bannon mentions, hold your nose and vote for, right? And that's what's at risk here, because Trump is making big gains. So even in these districts that are minority majority districts, right? Black voters, the Democrat Party has counted on black voters in huge numbers, always voting for Democrats. The problem is Donald Trump has chewed into that base so much that even without the redistricting, it was a problem. Now with the redistricting, it's a huge problem. Harry Enton on CNN breaks this down.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing right now in the numbers is President Trump and the Republican Party are chipping away at the long-term advantage that Democrats have had with black voters, with African Americans. You can see it right here. Look, Trump's approval among African Americans at this point in term one, he was at 12%. He's been losing ground with a lot of it. He's gaining He's gaining ground with African Americans. He's up to 16% at this point. And you say, this isn't that big of a shift. But I will tell you, Republicans absolutely love this shift that's going on because Democrats have had such a long-term advantage. The fact that he's actually gaining ground versus where he was in term number one, this has major implications for elections down the line because Democrats, especially in a lot of these tight races, you talk about places like Georgia, right down in the South, you see this type of movement for Trump actually gaining ground. This could have major ramifications and help put Republicans over the top in a number of southern places in the midterm elections.
But do you see this as part of a bigger trend?
I see this as absolutely part of a bigger trend. Donald Trump's Republican Party is absolutely gaining ground, not just him gaining in terms of his approval rating, but look at the party ID margin, Kate, because this to me was absolutely stunning. Look at this party ID margin among African Americans. At this point in Trump term number one, Democrats had a 63-point advantage. That is absolutely fallen. Look at where it is now. A double-digit shift away. Democrats, of course, still have the advantage, but it's a 12-point shift to the Republican Party. And I look back through Gallup's records. They sent me their records. And this, in fact, lead that Democrats have is actually smaller than any lead from 2006 to 2021. So Democrats are leading. But again, we're talking about chipping away. Republicans are chipping away at this long-term advantage that Democrats have had among African Americans. We see it in terms of Trump's approval rating, and we even see it to a wider degree among the party ID margin, where all of a sudden there are a number of African Americans who are walking away from the Democratic Party and a number of them who are walking into the Republican tent.
That is very interesting looking at that past Gallup information.
Yeah.
What does this mean for the race for control in Congress?
Okay, so you see this right here. You see this 51-point advantage that Democrats have, significantly less than you see that 63-point advantage. And what we will note was back in 2024, right, Donald Trump put in a historically strong performance among African Americans. Democrats performed the worst in a generation. Have they gained any of that coalition back from where they fell down to in 2024? But take a look here. Okay. Choice for election among African Americans. Kamala Harris was leading amongst that group in the pre-election polling by 63 points. Are Democrats gaining back any of that ground? It's a 62-point advantage now. Republicans are holding on to the gains that they made among African Americans in 2024. Republicans are gaining among African Americans. They are chipping away at that long-term advantage. The Donald Trump-led Republican Party is making gains among African Americans that we simply put have not seen the Republican Party make in a generation.
Fascinating. Good to see you here. Thanks so much for putting it together.
Isn't that interesting? Republicans are chipping away at the game, Donald Trump, because blacks are attracted to his agenda. The immigration agenda, the pro-jobs agenda, the pro-family agenda. They're attracted to that, the strong leadership. And they're not, and the Democrats aren't gaining this ground back, right? The blacks don't really care about the war in Iran. We've been at war forever. Who cares? But you know what they do see? Jobs, because you know why? Illegal immigrants in their community are being deported. You know what they do care about, right? Stuff that Trump is making headway on. Here's Kamala Harris, and this is fascinating because her odds of becoming the nominee for Democrats in 2024 has quadrupled, Ron.
From what? 1%?
Well, I'll tell you here 4%? In a second. It's quadrupled. So here she is giving a speech, and the sound's not great. And I do, for those of you that are video watchers, I want to draw your attention to the saxophone player while she's giving this rousing speech. Okay. But she expresses some concerns about the Republican Party. And she says something that it's like, they've worked for decades to get to this point. Good.
People will take to the streets if they try to cancel it.
That's the saxophone player sleeping while she's talking on stage with her.
To get to this very moment and beyond, which is to make it so difficult for the.
So this sounds horrible, but she says the Republicans have worked for decades to get to this point, to make it so difficult for people to vote. So she's pretty concerned. Now, her odds have quadrupled. She had 2%. She's up to 8%.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, big worries here. But
so I wasn't so far off.
She's climbing in the poly market odds. Now, our favorite CIA senator, she represents the CIA up in Michigan. I don't know how she got that seat. Clearly, the people in Michigan are just totally in on CIA operatives becoming senators. But she's a CIA operative, okay? And she ran for Senate. She won. And she is grilling Pete Hegseth again. the fact that Democrats are this worried about the election and they're planting these seeds of doubt about the 2026 midterms. I mean, you're hearing everything over on Blue Sky from Trump's going to cancel the midterms because he's going to lose, to he's going to send troops to, to keep people from voting and intimidate voters. She's in a Senate committee hearing. This thing was live streamed on C-SPAN. Grilling Pete Hegseth about, are you going to tell Trump no when he tells you to send troops to the polling station?
Asks you to seize ballots or voting machines in states during the 2026 election. Will you stand up for the Constitution and say no, or will you salute and do his bidding?
To the seditious six.
Senator, I didn't get a chance to answer the front part of your question, which, there was a lot of deferred maintenance under the Biden administration that needed to be addressed because the world was in chaos.
Just
when President
address
Trump was
the election issue, please.
Well, again, that's
the most important thing. It's what's happening.
It's yet another gotcha hypothetical, which is your specialty.
It's not. We had an executive order
under the Biden administration in 2024.
It's not a hypothetical. I refuse to accept. You give that answer all the time. You and I have done this dance before. Get over it. Okay. In 2020, he's the president, your boss, the guy you're performing for right now, told the journalists this year that he wished he signed that executive order to your predecessor. And your predecessor said publicly, thank God, we didn't actually go forward with it. What are you going to do? You're the guy here in the seat. It's not hypothetical. Tell the American people, will you deploy the uniformed military to our polls to collect voter rolls or machines?
Oh boy. Are you accusing me of performing? Because you're performing for cable news right now.
But Mr. CIA, we have.
It's a hypothetical. By the way, in 2024, under the Biden administration, 15 states did deploy.
Under their governor's authority, when their governors asked for it.
What did Joe Biden say about that?
That's fundamentally... I don't think anything, because he needed them for cybersecurity and for COVID. Trump did it too.
Wait, why would you need cybersecurity at polling stations? Why would you need cybersecurity at polling stations?
I have no idea.
I don't understand. I don't understand. I thought it was air gapped, totally secure, not connected to the internet. Why would you need cybersecurity people there at polling stations? It's conundrum,
For Trump. But it was not the federal decision. It was those governors of the states under their authorities. Okay. It's never been done in our history. Please stand up for the Constitution. Do not send uniformed military to our polls.
Do you have a response to that portion of the question, Mr. Secretary?
It's interesting. Donald Trump said one time, you've got to use law enforcement. The only thing these Democrats are afraid of are a badge and a gun. That's the only thing they're afraid of. They wield that tool. Absolutely. Right. When they're in charge, they're sending troops. When Trump's in charge, please don't send troops. It makes you really wonder, what is it that they're trying to protect? It's power, but it's also money. Now, remember, America is socialist. We have to get over that. This idea that we're a republic. No, we're not. We're a socialist democracy. Okay. We have a central bank. This is a big problem for us. And it all goes down to money, because what is money, Ron? What is money? Power. Money is power. Money is power in many more ways than just influence and coercion and force. Money is literally power. Okay. In every aspect. And so our government, our socialist government, what these Democrats are trying to protect, what they're desperate to protect through the means of voters, through the means of illegal immigration, through every policy choice they have made for the last 100 years, is try to protect power. And that's intricately tied with money. Mm-hmm. And so how does the central bank operate? The central bank is a big, fat Ponzi scheme. It's totally unaccountable to real market forces. Here's Squawk Box, CNBC, with what's his name here? David Malpass. He's the former president of the World Bank, talking about how the central bank and the banks are essentially completely fleecing over the American people.
Yes. Yeah, it's worrisome. The Fed basically has become now just a giant hedge fund. It's lost $1 trillion, and counting. It's going to be a gigantic loss. What it does is borrows money at 5.4% from banks and then dumps it into government bonds. So think what that trade does. That causes the government to think that it's better off than it is. And so that encouraged the government to be short when rates were zero. So why did the government, borrow so much in T-bills? Well, because the Fed was buying the bonds and it made it look like yields were going to stay low for remember the low for long phrase. So we've got these multiple problems that are going on, and it endangers the dollar. So that's the basic case.
Instead of the Fed having such large balances, wouldn't the private sector be starting businesses and risking capital and bringing returns and adding to growth? Wouldn't all that money be better if it wasn't with the Fed?
That's right. And we're depending on private equity. So as the banks get squeezed out, because they're lending so much to the Fed, it's literally a floating rate loan from banks to the Federal Reserve so it can buy government bonds. So if that were freed up, that would allow the banks to at least consider a small business loan and inventory loan, the kinds of things that help the economy grow. And this is on a global basis. It's not just the Fed. It's all the major central banks doing the same thing, meaning taking money from the economy in order to buy government bonds. We need to be clear on that. I heard the previous segment, they talk about money printing. There isn't any money printing on it. It's just money borrowing, and they pay top dollar for it. The Fed pays 5.4 to banks and 5.3 to money market funds, so to the Fidelity and Vanguard and so on.
Do you understand what he's saying there? They're taking your savings, they're taking your investments, and they're loaning it to the Fed, who then turns around and backloads the government coffers instead of giving small business loans, mortgages, and things at a good interest rate. Because the Fed can get 5% from the Fed, from the Federal Reserves, the central banks. Why would they give you a mortgage at 3%, 4%?
This is the first time I've heard this way in my brain, and did
your brain just break?
Well, it didn't break, but it made me a little bit mad.
As it should, Ron. We should be pissed off. Like Jeffrey Epstein said, if you understood how the banks do with your money, people would riot. Even Jeffrey Epstein acknowledged that.
I knew that they were doing this, but what I didn't realize until just this second is that they were shaving like another 5% on fees. I didn't realize that part of it. And I was like, what the hell?
Yeah. Now, this is really important for us,
because that's an incentive for them to overdo it. And it immediately made me think, I wonder what a healthy load of T-bills on your balance sheet is, I mean,
here's the thing. As peasants, you think you put money in the bank, they pay you an interest rate, and then they take your money and they lend it to some other guy to buy a car or buy a house, and it's secure, and they've got the right reserves. The reality is they're not. They're taking your money and giving it to the Fed, and then the Fed uses that money to go and buy government bonds, which then puts it in the coffers of the legislature to spend.
Right.
And what do they do with that money? They buy off voters. They buy off constituencies.
They dead hole it.
Here's Brooke Rollins. I'm putting this together for you peasants. I'm a peasant too. This is incredibly important.
It's killing our economy.
It's killing us.
Yeah.
It makes them completely unaccountable. This is what enables Health and Human Services to ignore health and humanity over money.
Yeah.
Right? And the government thinks they have all the money they want to spend because they're literally stealing it from you when you go put your money in the bank and you're saving. And then when they do loan it back to you, they loan it back at a higher interest rate than what they'd loan to the Fed, because they would never loan you the money for less. The Fed will just buy it all and then turn around and give it to the government, the legislature, and the executive branch to spend. Here's an example of how that money gets spent to create constituencies that are dependent on certain politicians to do it. This is Brooke Rollins, the U.S. Agriculture Secretary. They went and looked at SNAP benefits where the SNAP benefits were going. And only red states provided them with this information. Okay.
Of course.
So this is just the red states. Imagine what's happening in the blue states.
Governor in America is saying fraud and abuse in the SNAP program, the food stamp program, will end. And please be our partner in this. 29 states responded. All but 2 were, of course, red states, Republican governors, and they said, yes, we are in. And within that data dump, billions of pieces of data that we're now sharing with the states, we found 500,000 people getting more than one benefit illegally. We found 244,000 dead people. Laura, this is just the red states. In that time, we have now arrested, it's just the red states. We have now arrested 895 different people in the last year for illegally using the food stamp system. And now, of course, we're talking about what is happening with that money. So we're making a lot of progress. Of course, the blue states are suing us to say that they don't have to share that data, but the corruption is absolutely astounding. The vice president has now leaned in with his fraud task force. We are now on supercharged, not that we weren't before, but now we're really on warp speed to do everything we can in the next 2.5 years to get this under control and to change it for good.
Okay, well, all the fraud's going to be in.
Yeah, the majority of the fraud is going to be in the left states. Why? Because that's where Democrats have consolidated their power by buying off these constituencies. So all that money that they take from you and they give to the Fed, and the Fed buys government bonds and gives the cash to the state, and then the state can turn around and spend it on these fraudulent SNAP recipients. Huge numbers. And then here's the other thing. They were not just paying it to local people. Like, at least if it goes to someone who's living in our community, it might make its way to the grocery stores and stuff. At least you get that. Turns out, as they went and looked at this, they found out that foreigners from foreign email domains were registering for these benefits.
1,000 email accounts were used to sign up for food stamps from some in foreign countries, Canada, China, Mexico. You can't even make this. This is like COVID fraud.
It really is so scary to think if President Trump hadn't won, November of 2024, I don't know that we would have ever gotten our country back. I really don't believe that. Because we had the first term, and then we had 4 years to sort of get ready and organize and then go really fast. This is why we're uncovering all of this. What you're talking about is this crazy thing called broad-based categorical eligibility. 46 states use it, which basically just means, here's an electric bill and here's an email address. There's no identification verification required, and anybody can sign up for it. And in the Biden years, the food stamp program grew by 40%. Of course, they're buying votes, right? They're 40%. It almost doubled in 4 years. And of course, they're buying votes because money is power in so many ways. Hoping that using all of this government money will create more voters for them, illegal and legal. And that's why they're fighting so hard against us right now to keep this data from coming in so that we can really fix the program. But we're going to do it. We're making a lot of progress. And I'm really grateful to the USDA team. It's our inspector general at USDA that has really found those 893 that have been arrested, that are going to trial, that are going to jail. And we're not going to, exactly. It is a drop in the bucket, but it's important thinking about where we are, where we were. We've got a lot of work to do. So all you need is an email address and a utility bill, and we'll pay it. And they're buying votes with that increase in recipients, that people become dependents. Ponyboy says, so that only solidifies your answer to my 401k yesterday. Yeah, don't become dependent on the system. Don't give your money to them.
These scams through the state seem like they're so easy that if you want to do it, you can. And so, I mean, this is kind of up to people's conscience. And then I'm really feeling hopeful that for the future, because there are so many people that have just not fallen into the trap of signing up for these programs.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's
while a new investigation.
Here's the next one. Okay, inappropriate government spending. They're getting free money that's putting stuffed into their coffers for them to spend. Legislature can write any bill. Bill is money. I charged you a bill. Right? They write a bill and it has appropriations. The legislature holds the purse strings. The government signs the check. The executive branch signs the check. Does that make sense? Legislature writes the check. The executive branch signs the check. So in California, they had a huge deal where they wanted to create, they wanted to revamp the 911 system.
Okay.
That's reasonable, right? We want quick response times.
Yeah.
So they wrote a bill to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a new 911 system that was supposed to be done in a specified period of time. Turns out it didn't get done in the amount of time. They went over budget, and then they had to scrap the program.
While a new investigation found that Governor Gavin Newsom spent $450 million on a new 911 dispatch system, state officials scrapped it entirely, and now call centers are facing rolling blackouts. Chris Rufo conducted the investigation. He joins me now. You said the whole thing was such a disaster. Okay, spell it out. Why did it fail?
Well, Gavin Newsom, in his first year in office, promised to deliver a brand new 911 system within 3 years for $132 million. Now it's 7 years later, almost $500 million has been spent. And the system that they rolled out as pilots was such a disaster. You had roving blackouts, drop calls. A whistleblower told us it might have left one man dead because the calls dropped when he was seeking help from 911. State officials made the decision to say, no more. We're just scrapping the entire $500 million program. And now, Stu, the system is being held together by a thread. You have call dispatch centers that are buying spare parts on eBay because the equipment is so old they don't manufacture the parts anymore. And officials in Oakland warned about a catastrophic failure in the future in which the 911 system would go completely dark.
Is anybody taking responsibility for this?
No, in fact, the vendors that received these massive multi-million-dollar contracts are blaming the state of California. The state of California is blaming the vendors. And so they have squabbled and fought, but there's one clear loser in this. And this is the California taxpayer, the California voter that expects when he or she calls 911 that someone will pick up the phone, dispatch emergency services. Some whistleblowers are telling me that the risk of catastrophic failure in Los Angeles is particularly high. And of course, they're expecting the Olympics to come into town. And the question for Gavin Newsom is, as always, will his rolling failures catch up with him, or will he escape accountability and run for president in 2028? Only time will tell.
Will he escape accountability?
Well, I mean, our governor lost $500 million to a Nigerian scam, so I don't know.
And the government just replenished it.
Yeah.
You know, well, whatever. Nigerians make great campaign donations. Yeah, this is one of those things where, listen, they're taking the money from you at 1%, 2%, whatever your 0.5% interest rate. It's on your savings accounts. They're loaning it to the Fed at 5%.
Right.
They're then giving it to the government at a bond rate, 4%, 3.4% is what the Fed rate is. So they're losing on the interest payment, right? And then the government goes out and pisses it away. And when you pay taxes, all you're paying is the interest that the Treasury has to the Federal Reserve, and which is taking a loss. They're just stuffing the piggy bank with funny money, money.
Yeah,
they steal your money.
The taxes go to pay the debt service only.
They steal your money through the banking system, not through the tax system. The tax is interest on your money that you gave them to lend to the government that they piss away on broken 911 systems, railroads, and, tracks to nowhere, illegal immigrants being bought off for votes. That's what's going on. But money is power. And where do we get the bulk of our power in this world? Where does it come from? We actually refer to money and our dollar bill as the petrodollar.
Okay.
Right? The petrodollar. So one of Donald Trump's agendas, unlike every Democrat who came before, was drill, baby, drill. Not let's print money. Let's drill, baby, drill, because oil is money. Oil is power. Would you not agree?
It's tangible money.
The Democrats, when they think of money as power, they think of buying voters to put them in power. When Donald Trump thinks of money as power, he thinks we need more oil. And we have now, at this week, have exported. So not only do we have our own domestic supply, we have exported more oil power to the rest of the world than at any other point in our history.
Well, Santelli is very good at reporting what just happened. There's so much undercurrent in what happened today. And it gets a little wonky, but work with me here, because this is going to affect every single War Room viewer, every single American's wallet and budget. Okay, so inflation number is is been a little bit elevated. It hasn't been bad, but the real number, you pointed it out, Steve, you nailed it. Growth is the only, it saves everything. So if you have high inflation, if you have growth, it bails you out. If you have high unemployment, you get growth, it bails out high unemployment. What we got was a 2% GDP number, which is amazingly resilient. I'll tell you why. 2%, Trump has had it at 4%. Target is 3%. 2% is damn good given the oil price shock that we're going through right now. 70% of the GDP number is consumer spending. Santelli alluded to the consumer spending ticking up above expectations. It's got to be stronger than that even, because 70% of the GDP number is the spending, and the spending is what matters. What drives the economy. 70% of our economy is consumer spending based. So GDP at 2% is wonderful, especially when you consider the United Kingdom this morning, late their afternoon, this morning, came out with a flat growth, almost zero growth in the GDP and high inflation. They are experiencing stagflation. We're not. They are. They have their countries mixed, I think. And that may be a reflection of the realization that Europe and Asia are at the mercy of the Strait of Hormuz and the Iranians right now. And we frankly aren't. We're actually shipping more oil out of this country than we ever have. Last week was the highest export of oil, of petroleum products in the history of keeping records. So a lot of good things, even though it may sound bad right now, but a lot of good things happening in the economy. It's being very resilient, to say the least, Steve.
Let's talk about the prices, because it kind of popped overnight. President Trump saying, hey, I don't mind.
So that is a good thing. So unlike the way the previous administrations, the rhinos and the Democrats, the communists have run things where, we'll just print money. Money is power. No, money is a measurement of power. That's what it is. It's not that money creates power through the electoral. I mean, yeah, that's a broken system and it burns itself out. Eventually, the people eat each other, both metaphorically and, if you go to Venezuela, literally. Okay. Money is power. And if you think power is the people like that and give money to people without actual power behind it, then it ends up in self-cannibalism. Here's our stats, right? This is the world's largest oil producers. So this is based in 2024, before Trump was elected. And this is because of Trump, what did in his first term. The United States produces 22% of the world's power.
That's more than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined.
Combined, exactly. Wow. Now, United Arab Emirates sits down here at 4.5%. Iraq, United Arab Emirates, Iran, and I can't remember if Russia was a part of it. Saudi Arabia was a part of it. They were part of a coalition called OPEC.
Coincidentally, on that graphic, the world supply was like 100, and so it's easy to figure out what our percentage of the world is. It's just 22 or whatever.
22%.
So we're delivering a quarter of the world's oil supply. Wow.
Yeah. Now, there's a big thing, because power is money, oil is money, and the Middle East, with Venezuela, through what was called OPEC, right, was controlling over 50% of the world's oil supply. This is what was the oil
exporting countries.
This was in 1970s, the oil embargo. We were buying oil from the Middle East. We were not producing enough of it domestically. Okay.
We had fuel lines in this country that you and I are just a little bit too young to remember.
We what? Yeah, fuel lines. Yep, exactly. And that was because OPEC just decided to pump less and raise the price through the roof. So they made more profit, less resources being expended.
And back then, people were like, gas is hitting 40 cents a gallon. This is bullshit.
Oh, the dollar. But anyways, these OPEC countries kind of controlled the market. As the United States has ramped up production, we've had a little bit more say in that. And we've had kind of stable gas prices. I mean, we've had ups and downs, Obama, Biden up, Trump down, Iran war up. Okay.
But a barrel of oil has been between 50 and 100-ish bucks a barrel for a long time.
A long time. Even though inflation, it's like cheaper to buy today based on,
I mean, and like today, there's speculation. Well, there's less oil going through the Strait of Hormuz, so our barrel's going to go up to 140. Whoa, crazy.
See, instead of OPEC getting the benefit of that, now America's getting the benefit of that because we're now exporting. So this is a financial analysis that's talking about OPEC and how significant it is that the UAE has left OPEC. right? They've now become independent, so they can pump as much oil as they want. They're all making their own decisions now instead of part of that coalition.
Okay.
Again, breaking up the cartel that has understood that power is money, oil is money, right?
The UAE just left OPEC. What is OPEC, and is it a big deal? Is it going to impact oil?
I think OPEC stands for the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries. I don't know.
Okay.
I think that's what it means. So basically, it's a cartel, right? The oil world is an oligopoly. That means there's a few players only that have the oil. So it's like an oligopoly. And then within that oligopoly, an oligopoly is like a monopoly, but with several players. Within that, OPEC is like a cartel. And what OPEC does, if you're a member of OPEC, they control production, they control pricing. They'll say like, hey, we want prices per barrel of oil to be this much. And then what happens is, so each of you member countries can only produce so much because it's a supply and demand thing.
They collude on pricing.
The price setting. So the UAE leaving OPEC, why? It's because they want to be a regional player. They're moving closer towards the the US, meaning in their ally, things that they do as a good ally of the US, they're moving to.
Oh, dang.
What happened?
That was the cartel. Because they have excess production capacity. They've spent so much money on building out their infrastructure to produce more oil that they're like, hey, I don't want to be controlled. I want to be able to sell more, especially after what's happening in Iran right now. The whole global geopolitical structure is going to change over there. And it looks like they just want to move closer to us and be free of any price control so they can sell more oil, and make more money basically. Because things are changing. But what the impact is because OPEC is a cartel, as more cartel members leave, they have less control over the price. So the long-term, academic view on this, logically, is if they leave, maybe more other people leave. And more people who leave means there's more supply coming into the market because there's more suppliers now not being controlled. So more oil, more supply, oil prices could drop, basically.
That's good.
Yeah, that's great. More supply, oil prices could drop. But is it good, Ron?
And that's hard to say. It depends on if you're selling oil or not.
It's an interesting situation that you get yourself into. Producing more oil, prices of all kinds of stuff, plastics, everything will eventually come down. But as things come cheaper, the money supply is not drying up. So it starts to be you've got money chasing nothing. Combine that with AI, you might start to see how this is going to be a problem. This is why Elon Musk goes, probably going to be universal high income, because we're literally going to have money to throw at you and beg you to buy things.
Yep.
So on one hand, good. On the other hand, we should have some pause here. The checks and balances on government spending as oil goes up, there's more money. And then there's less money. It's kind of a check and balance thing here. So Donald Trump was asked about the current high oil prices because we've got these short election cycles and, people feel pain at the pump. And who do they blame? They blame the president and his war of choice in Iran. And Trump has held the same line. When this war in Iran is resolved, the price of oil will plummet because we're now oversupplying. And on top of that, the money will flow here. The power won't be flowing to Iran. And what's the other thing Iran was trying to get? A nuclear weapon. That's a 100-year deterrent plan. Right? The idea that Iran could produce as much oil as they do and have a nuclear weapon and be the bad actor they have been on the world stage, unacceptable. So Trump's trying to fix a generational problem while trying to balance the equities of an election cycle problem.
The average price of a gallon of gas is now $4.30 in this country.
And you know what? And we're not going to have a nuclear weapon in the hands of Iran. The gas will go down. As soon as the war's over, it'll drop like a rock. There's so much of it. It's all over the place, sitting all over the oceans of the world, and it'll go down. But what won't happen is if Iran had a nuclear weapon and used it, then the whole world is a different place. You're not going to have to pay a little bit more for gasoline. The gasoline, the oil will go down rapidly as soon as the war is over.
Of course it will. Of course it will go down rapidly. But here's the thing. What did he just say? Oil is not scarce. It's all over the world, especially under the oceans. Tons of pressure down there. Okay. It's not scarce. So when oil becomes not scarce and goods and services and products become not scarce, what happens to our economy in general?
It's probably going to slow down.
Slow down, speed up.
I don't know.
Deflate. There's some problems here, but there's a resolution on the horizon. But here's Trump talking about Venezuela because they were one of the members of OPEC, and we spent a pretty decent amount of money to go get Maduro and do everything we did down there. But now that's resolved. In fact, Trump even says Venezuela has already paid off the operation to arrest Maduro because now we are basically in control of their oil supply.
Oh.
To the victor go the spoils.
Venezuela, and where we're doing great, we're getting along with them great. We're working very closely with them. They're doing more oil now than they've done in many, many decades, actually. And they're making more money, and so are we. It's like a joint venture, to be honest. And we paid for the attack many times over. The attack, something you've never heard before, probably. I always used to say to the victor, belong the spoils. But we paid for the attack, which is always expensive. But it was a less than 1 day attack. It was actually a 45-minute attack. And that's a good, they have a good military in Venezuela, but they did not expect that and that and that. Other than
He's pointing at some generals. Yeah. So Venezuela is now kind of under our wing. UAE is now a free agent, which probably means under our wing. We just did a credit line swap with them. Essentially, we stuffed their treasury full of cash. Kind of interesting to profit.
So when they sell oil, are they going to sell it on petrodollar?
Yeah. That was the point of what we did. We pumped their treasury full of cash.
Bonus.
Exactly. So here's Kevin Hassett on Fox Business talking about how Iran is really on the brink here. But again, this all has to do with oil.
Well,
oil is power.
If you look at the situation in Iran, the Iranian economy is completely on the ropes. They're having a hyperinflation. They're running out of food. A huge amount of the feed that goes into their animals is imported through the Gulf and having trouble getting through. And so there's an enormous amount of pressure for Iran to open up. And when they do, as you saw, that President Trump really broke OPEC. Because the UAE has left OPEC and they have a massive amount of excess capacity. So as soon as we get the Strait open, that oil is going to flow like you've never seen before. So I think that futures markets expect prices to go down a lot, but I think that they're underestimating the effect of increased supply once the Strait is open.
Yeah, and so are we. When you have free power, you also have free money. See, this is what China was taking advantage of. They were getting cheap, under market value power, oil, from Iran. And now we've cut that off. So China's going to have to pay full market price for their power, which means the power they get by paying off their people as a communist country, centralized economy and everything, is going to be more expensive. Meanwhile, we'll be on the receiving end of that. Here's some more information about Iran's economy and how it is really on the brink. This is pushing the Ayatollahs and the IRGC to the limit, right? I mean, their cash flow supply has been cut off, aka their power.
Just look at the cost for Iran so far for this war. Through the Strait of Hormuz, during peacetime, more than 80% of all their commerce, including their oil and their food and their water, went through the Strait of Hormuz. Seaborne trade, 90% of it's now been halted, all right? Daily economic losses, almost 450 million a day. In addition, you got inflation up 67% year over year, and the U.S. dollar is just crushing the Iranian currency at the moment.
Yeah, 1.8 million reals to $1. That's bad. I have a $50 million treasury note from Zimbabwe. $50 million. On top of that, Trump's not done. Drill, baby, drill, right? He just signed essentially Keystone XL Pipeline 2.0 authorization, allowing another pipeline to be built.
Associated with this, and then we'll talk about this with the press. You'll ask some questions of the Congress people, okay? Because they were really responsible for this. All right?
Yes.
Who would like to hold them? Popular guy. Okay, let's go.
This is a presidential permit authorizing the Bridger pipeline, sir. This is a transborder pipeline similar to the old Keystone XL pipeline. It'll significantly expand our ability to move oil around North America, oil and gas around North America. It's a huge deal in terms of long-term energy dominance and energy security.
Slightly different than the last administration. They wouldn't sign a pipeline deal, and we have pipelines going up. And by the way, they're way underground.
Okay. Why does this matter? The Democrats wanted to get their power, money, from you. They wanted you to put your money in the bank. They wanted to take it, loan it back to themselves, and then pay off a different constituency to continue to dilute your power as a voter. Got it? Yeah. Trump is like, no, I don't want your money, your stored energy via savings. What I want is the source of power, which is energy, oil. Do you see the difference here?
I see it. Yes. He's trying to help raise the entire nation.
Yes. And what has this done? Right? His pro-energy, pro-business policies. There was a huge number that came out yesterday, unemployment claims, right? There's always some level of unemployment, and they expected 250,000 people to be on this month's unemployment claim, new unemployment claims. Huge reduction.
And that came in, again, better than expected. 189,000 initial jobless claims added this week. The expectation was 215,000. So this is basically showing fewer people are filing for unemployment. That's a big deal. Yeah. Right. And why is that? Well, it's because manufacturing's on the rise. We've got our own power supply. So what's that mean? They need less of our capital to go to the central bank to be lent back out to the government. And so it stays in the bank and it's available for small business owners and stuff like that to use. Not necessarily in the way of loans, but simply in the way of savings. Right.
But, it seems to remind me cheap oil back after World War II. Didn't that do something for our country?
Yeah, it did. It was like a really incredible economic boom. MAGA. Yeah. Make America great again. It's interesting to me when Trump says MAGA, a lot of people assumed we're going to go back to the 1950s. And he really was always alluding to the Gilded Age, which was when oil was discovered in America. And we had essentially a worldwide monopoly on it for quite a few years. And in the 1950s, we were on the Bretton Woods standard. And essentially that meant we had the free printed money taking from American savings. Gold and silver was confiscated in 1933. Post-World War Europe, we basically took the gold out of the bank in London and gave them dollars in exchange so they could buy oil, and that made us rich, and then we had our own supply. That's what was going on there. That's not what we want to repeat because that ends in what we're experiencing today, if not worse. Man, the sun always comes up and it just totally flushes out the room.
I think it's, this whole wall is just washing you out.
Yeah, washing me out. Okay, so why is unemployment down? Because manufacturing and things like that are up. And we're just at the tip of it.
I think when we look at the data and when you put it, these kind of short-term disruptions you're seeing in the energy markets, we're seeing that the American economy remains on a very solid trajectory, and we're focused on continuing to implement President Trump's pro-growth agenda. I think the fact that yesterday we saw new orders of core capital goods, which are the industrial machinery, the things you need to make manufacturing facilities and factories, that those orders actually exceeded expectations by over sixfold. They grew by around 3.3% compared to 0.5% growth expectations. And so we're very confident that our agenda continues to pay off to grow the economy, to grow manufacturing, to secure these trillions of dollars investments. And that's where we remain focused on here at the White House, along with delivering economic relief for the American people. I think
so. The economy growth is driven by what they call atoms, the real production of goods, not bits, which is electronic money, right? Like fake money, just go into the computer, Federal Reserve, and transfer money, make money, right? Take it from the people, take it off that balance sheet, put it on this balance sheet, loan it back to that balance sheet. That's bits. Okay. It's ethereal, truly ethereal. There's nothing tied to it. But Trump's economy is based off real goods, atoms being produced, oil, atoms being taken out of the ground and turned into energy, which then extends forward into the economy. The other net result of this, because more Americans are working.
Let's get into the personal income and spending numbers. Income up 0.6, double expectations, and that would be the best level since the summer of 25, July to be specific. If we look at the spending side, equal to expectations, up 0.9. pretty robust. Last month, a little bit more robust, from up 0.5% to up 0.6. How does up 0.9 compare? Well, you'd have to go to the last quarter of 24 when it was up 1%. And we are a consumption economy. That is pretty good news.
That is really good news. Wages are up, spending's up. That's good. People are buying things. And here's how it looks when we talk about inflation. This is a Fox News piece about affordability, Biden versus Trump.
When you look at overall inflation for the first year of Trump versus Biden, Biden, overall inflation was up 4.3%, higher than Trump, just up 1.6%. Groceries under Biden in that time, up 3.8%, with Trump up 1.3%. And then when it comes to gas, this is crazy. Biden up 24.4%, with Trump, it is actually down 5.4%. That is where the biggest difference is. And we heard from the HUD Secretary, Scott Turner, this afternoon. They are racing to cut red tape for construction projects because the belief among officials here is that if housing is the number one place where people are getting killed when it comes to affordability, if people are cutting red tape and able to build more houses and apartments, then the prices will come down. Pretty basic supply and demand in play.
Pretty basic supply and demand in play. Trump focuses on atoms, real world production, manufacturing and things. Biden focused on fiat, fake, bits, digital. So they printed money to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. Trump's buying voters by giving them jobs to make things. Biden bought voters by literally giving them your savings, transferring it to them, right? Totally different mentality. Now, I would submit this. The system is totally broken. So regardless of all the stuff that I just presented to you, the system is totally broken. You mentioned the post-World War II economy and how good that was for us, right? That we were still on a gold standard. So this chart right here is the national debt as compared to the value of gold. What is gold? Atoms. It's atoms. And it takes a lot of energy to get gold. I mean, it is not a sweat-free environment to go mine gold. Okay, like you work hard for it. There's a lot of excess energy being stored in that gold.
You know, there's a lot of people that go out there and they look for gold even today. And I follow a guy that is a pretty good miner type dude, and he finds gold, but damn, what he has to go through.
What he works for, yeah. So here's this, right? You got World War II, which we saw the national debt rise. We printed money to go fight the Nazis and fight the Imperial Japanese. But then after that, we became the world's central bank, the world's reserve economy. And you saw the price of the dollar as compared to gold dip very, very low, right? So this is the good era where we took all that extra money and we made atoms. We built things, cities. You look at skylines around America, a lot of them originated. I mean, when was the Space Needle built? Like 1970s?
63.
63. Okay, 1963 right here.
It was the World's Fair.
Yeah. And so all over America, almost every skyline you go look at was majorly impacted during this period of time. But then OPEC decided to do its thing, right? They decided to take the power for themselves by controlling oil.
Well, they
prices.
were trying to stop that free fall on that chart.
Yep. So this right here is national debt when compared to GDP. Look at where we're at on a huge trajectory. And how does this impact things? When you're talking about your retirement savings, you can't save really golds. I mean, we should have. If you invested it in the market, look at this. This is the S&P. If you go back to 1950, this is the S&P compared to gold prices. So if you'd have bought gold then versus buy S&P, does that make sense? Stock market. So if you buy an S&P fund, that is like whatever S&P invests in all the stocks and they're supposed to do their thing. Look at where we're at today. Gold, as compared to the S&P, is more valuable than the S&P, which means that real atom that you would have invested in would have been way better than that ethereal money thing that you're investing in. So, stock markets are reaching all-time highs. So what?
Yeah.
Now, there's a change on things that's happening. And I want to show this to you. This is very, very powerful because we have an opportunity as a species right now, and especially as a nation and as a people, to change how money operates. As of right now, there's nowhere in the world you can go where you have real money, right? Every country is using fiat. Every country has central banks. Socialism is universal. We read this in the political remodel document, right? The entire world is running on this fake money system. And power goes to whoever can drill the oil. But you and I, we interact with that excess energy through the dollar.
Yep.
Or through your pound, or through your euro, or through your real or real, right? Or your yuan. But all of that is completely fake. Bitcoin changes this. It reconnects money to work. It reconnects money to power.
For most of human history, money began with work, with heat, with energy. We dug metal from the ground, melted it with fire, hammered it into something we could trust, because it cost something to create. Value was tied to effort, to sweat, to reality. Then we broke the link. Paper replaced metal. Keystrokes replaced paper, and money drifted free from the energy that once gave it truth. When money costs nothing to make, it becomes nothing at all. But something new emerged, or something ancient returned. Bitcoin reconnects money to the physical world, not through metal, but through pure computation. Electricity becomes work. Work becomes security. Security becomes value. Any watt, anywhere on Earth, stranded hydro, desert solar, forgotten geothermal, can be turned directly into money. No printing, no permission, no illusion. Just energy, crystallized into something incorruptible. Bitcoin is value anchored to reality again. Energy made durable. Work made permanent. Truth made
prepared. Okay. So Bitcoin returns money to have a real connection to energy. Unlike now, yes, petrodollar, the problem is we can print as many dollars to chase it as you want. Totally disconnected from reality. You can print as much money as you want to buy voters. Totally disconnected from jobs, manufacturing, quality of life, health and human services, all of it. Totally disconnected. In a system of fake money, you become a useless eater. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse if we don't change. And we, the people, are the only thing that can change the system. Trump is just a guy. He's a guy who understands this. He understands the real value of power and where it comes from. And he just appointed a Fed chairman who's going to get confirmed very, very shortly. This is Kevin Warsh, our new Fed chairman that's going to replace Jay Powell at the central bank, the Federal Reserve. And listen to him talk about money and its impact on government. You guys, you have to be prepared for this. As peasants, to understand macroeconomics and how it affects your microeconomics, your kitchen table budget, you can't win in a system that's designed to defeat you. You can't win in a system that's designed to take your power and connection to work away by making government unaccountable to how that money is created and spent. You can't win. You can be creative. You can maybe stay a little bit ahead. You can maybe, be a haver and not a taker. But at the end of the day, we all lose. And how do we know? Because they chased us around with needles to try to harm us and didn't care. How do we know? Because they came after our religion and faith. Because that religion and faith, American nationalism and Christianity, stands up to the collective. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. In a system like that, you can't win. So when Kevin Warsh here is being asked about Bitcoin and its connection to real work, he says something that should make your hair stand up.
You made reference to Bitcoin, and I thought I heard a little bit of condescension that people are buying Bitcoin and these things.
But doesn't it? Charlie Munger, this is 2 or 3 years before he died, Charlie Munger attacked Bitcoin. He called it evil, in part because it would begin to undermine the Fed's ability to manage the economy.
Oh, no.
You mean to take your savings and give it back to the government at a lower interest rate so they could blow it on fake 911 centers and illegal immigrants? That's why he opposed Bitcoin. It competes with the dollar. Oh, heaven forbid. Now you're going to hear to our next Fed chairman.
Or it could provide market discipline, or it could tell the world that things need to be fixed.
Bitcoin does not make you nervous.
Bitcoin does not make me nervous. I can hearken back to a dinner I had here in 2011 with someone who is another guest on your show. I won't say his name. I just did Mark Andreessen, who showed me the white paper. That was the original white paper. I wish I had understood as clearly as he did how transformative Bitcoin and this new technology would be. Bitcoin doesn't trouble me. I think of it as an important asset that can help inform policymakers when they're doing things right and wrong. It is not a substitute to the dollar.
It can help inform policymakers when they're doing things right or wrong.
Wow.
Just like gold used to do. But gold is useless in a modern information and internet economy. Useless. Because it requires trust of who? The bank, who's going to take your gold. They're going to give it to the Fed. The Fed's going to give it to the government, and they're just going to rob you blind and make you pay interest on it. This is the point.
I think it can often be a very good policeman for policy. And if
so we don't have to use bullets anymore?
I were to speak more broadly to what did Charlie Munger and others perhaps have in mind, there is a proliferation of securities that go under all sorts of names. Many, if not most of them, are not worth what they're might be being traded for.
The Dow, the NASDAQ, every freaking stock or bond. Ponyboy, dump the 401k. That's what he's telling you. This is your new Fed chairman. Oh, how Donald Trump plays 5D chess, doesn't he?
So what did Charlie say, and maybe his pal Warren say? There's the innovators, the imitators, and the incompetents. They're real innovators that are happening in and around that new technology. And what I would try to impart towards businesses and bankers is that the underlying technology that Mark showed me in that white paper, or tried to show me in that white paper, it's just software. It's just the newest, coolest software that will provide us an ability to do things that we could never have done before. Can the software be used for good and evil? Yes, both, like all software. So I don't cast aspersions like that. If there's a final point, it's these technologies are being built here. I don't just mean on Stanford campus. I believe in the United States. And the world's most talented engineers from China and Europe and everywhere, they come to the United States even now to try to build this stuff. And my view is by building it here, that gives us an opportunity to be more productive and create something very special over the next decade.
So oil is power, literally. That's where we get our power. It's how we generate energy, fire. And the way traditionally we've stored excess energy was in gold, something that was hard to get, that required excess energy and work to get. That world's gone. That world cannot exist where you have peer-to-peer transactions that require trust because we're not face-to-face. I can't hand you the gold coin. So all of a sudden we require an intermediary, a bank, and then the bank gets controlled by the government, and that's where we're at. A disconnection from power to money, to where politicians wield money as a tool for their power, which is voters, buying off constituencies, acquiring things that you can't afford to require with money that they created out of nothing, because they control the disconnect between atoms, digital money, fake money, because everything now is mostly computerized or printed, and work. They control that bridge, and we trust them, but we shouldn't. If there's one thing this show should tell you, you cannot trust these people. Here's Michael Saylor talking about the future of not only AI and robotics, but money, and how if we don't fix the money, we will become useless.
We'll just become a bunch of NPCs.
Not just NPCs, useless eaters.
Right.
Non-productive members of society.
There's going to be an explosion in prosperity because 1 billion robots will do all the work.
So you got 10 years to stake your claim in
world. The currency supply measured in dollars is continuing to expand, probably expanding 7% a year. It's been expanding about 7% a year for 100 years. People that don't own assets are suffering from that monetary debasement without realizing it. Human capital is getting demonetized. So what is scarce desirable property? Well, Bitcoin simply represents the highest form of capital that the human race has yet to discover. White collar bots are here right now. Make sure that, you're not in the critical path of what the AIs can automate.
If you have a white collar job, and very soon blue collar jobs, factory workers will be put out of work by robotics, which means you've got to figure out a way to store your value, to store your energy and use it. Without the ability to save money, because you're saving in dollars, which they can create, as a lot of Bitcoiners say, never work for something someone else can print, right? We're going to be on the downside. Here's Jay Jacobs. He's BlackRock's U.S. head of equities, equity ETFs. BlackRock's one of the largest corporations on the planet, and they own a little bit of everything, okay? They invest in these businesses, but they invest in it through the funny money, the securities. And if you go study that, you realize these guys are on the receiving end, a lot of that free money, okay, that's disconnected from power. But BlackRock knows the world we're moving into. They know what businesses are doing. They know how businesses are going to replace their labor forces. And so BlackRock has become huge into Bitcoin. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, they're the largest holder of Bitcoin in the world, which for many of us is like, oh my gosh, it doesn't matter. Remember what Kevin Warsh said, Bitcoin holds them accountable. It gives them the signals, because when they spend real value, not fake printed money that has no value to them, like there was no hard effort put into that money. Do you see what I'm saying? But Bitcoin has hard effort. That is directly tied to energy, oil. It's directly tied to hydroelectric work.
So what you're saying is when they make a business decision with Bitcoin, they're serious about it?
Yes, because there's a cost to get it.
Right.
Just like the Gilded Age was led because there was a time preference to gold. I'm not going to buy crap today. I want to invest in things that are quality and produce real atoms, real things. And that's what gave us the Gilded Age in America. As soon as we came off the Gilded Age, we've seen nothing but a downturn. And that little period, like you said, in the 1950s, that was because we were still on a gold standard, and we took the world's gold and gave it back to ourselves.
Right. And since then, it's been a slow or fast erosion.
Yes.
Who is Bitcoin curious comes out and says to you, Jay, what is the value? 1 minute in October, it's 126,000. Today, it's 76,000.
You have to look at it in the context of a broader portfolio. We can't put a specific price target on it on a given moment. It really has to do with how much do people need this asset that can behave uniquely, that can be a geopolitical hedge. That's constantly changing around the world. When you see, more currency debasement, when you see rising government debts, when you see that more people want to move assets across borders, that's going to increase the value of something like Bitcoin. And so in this world, we see that as a structural trend that's growing. But minute by minute, that demand and supply is going to change.
It doesn't matter how much Bitcoin you have. The objective right now is to get off zero. Give your dollars today, which are a melting ice cube in your bank account or in your pocket, give it away to store itself at today's value. The day you earned it. Get off zero. Get a pathway between you and Bitcoin. Now, there is an opportunity that we have right now. Our grandchildren will not have the upside of Bitcoin, right? The 49er gold rush in California, a broke guy could walk out to a river in California, pick up a couple nuggets, and hot dog, he's off to the brothel.
Can't do that anymore.
You can't do that anymore. There will be a time where Bitcoin becomes ubiquitous.
Right.
Right. But because it's scarce, it cannot be increased, because it's money in the form of information. Your wallet is the keys. It's the passwords that you can memorize, and they can't take what's in your brain. That's why it's uncensorable by anybody. You keep those keys in your head, those passwords in your head, and you're the walking Swiss bank account. Now, for those of us that are going to have to live through the AI transition and the robotics transition, you want to get the upside, because all that power will be measured in Bitcoin. That's all Bitcoin is, a measurement of power, measurement of energy. You want to get the upside. just because Bitcoin started out at $1 or whatever it was, and you missed the opportunity to go from $1 to 80,000, doesn't mean you've missed out at all. Doesn't mean you've missed out at all. Ron, go ahead and put the River chat in the links. And for those of you listening after the fact, there's a River link in the show description. You can go down there. That's my referral code. You can open a River account. Takes a few minutes. They're a Bitcoin custodian. This will help you get off zero. You can go to 1776live.us. We're going to be offering a Bitcoin class on all the complexities of how to take self-custody, how to use multi-signatory wallets, especially if you're holding family money and things like that. So all the details, how to run a node, all the technology side, you can learn it. But create a pathway between your energy today that you get paid in dollars into Bitcoin so you can store it, because otherwise governments will continue to print it. And because Bitcoin exists, there will become a moment where every nation in the earth will flip their printers on full steam ahead to try to buy Bitcoin now while their dollars still have value. That is going to happen. This is Jack Mallers, I think he's the CEO of Coinbase. It might be Stripe, I can't remember. But he's talking about the continued upside. Even though right now we're trading at about $77,000 a Bitcoin, remember, you can take $1 and buy Bitcoin. Just like a dollar bill, you can buy cents. There's 100 pennies in a dollar. For every Bitcoin, there's 1 million Satoshis. One Bitcoin is 1 million Satoshis. Just get off zero. Okay. So this is Jack Mallers talking about the upside. For those of us peasants that are going to live through the AI robotics transformation, you want to have something in here. You want to store the value you create today before they melt it away or print it away tomorrow.
Humans own about $900 trillion worth of stuff right now. That's currency, real estate, art, collectibles, precious metals like gold, right? $900 trillion worth of stuff. It's estimated that about half of that is monetized, meaning they own the stuff, they own the house, they own the art, they own the precious metal, not to consume it, not to live in the house, not to look at the art and be like, oh, I love this art, but because they're trying to store wealth, they're trying to preserve value, they're trying to sell it later. So that means the market opportunity to store wealth, store value, persist value you create for the world today and bring it to tomorrow is about $400 to $500 trillion. And that is where product market fit and extreme demand is from Larry Fink, from the bond market, from the treasury market, from retail consumers, from those living paycheck to paycheck. That's the product market we see in Strike. And the payment stuff, I would say less so. So when people say, can Bitcoin go higher than 100K? Well, the way I think about it is right now, Bitcoin's about $1.5 trillion in market cap. It's going after a $400 to $500 trillion opportunity. And that's in purchasing power terms. So in dollar terms, that'll go up as the currency weakens. So I think Bitcoin still has a 400 to 500X left in it. And we see that as a company. We onboard institutions, businesses, retail. We support the dollar, the pound, the euro. So we see the same demand globally, the same growth prospects globally. And that's where the product market fit is for us. I think Bitcoin's going to grow to hundreds of trillions of dollars in market cap. And there's going to be a lot of opportunity for all of us to share in that.
Yes. That was the math that I was doing. And I was like, whoa, Bitcoin is way undervalued.
Yes. It's bargain basement prices right now. Bargain basement prices. You can earn that extra dollar today, right? Every day, assuming you're not going deeper into debt, assuming you're at a break-even level, there's something left over. But because money's not valuable, you go get the extra latte. You buy the extra trinket because I'd rather buy a CD than watch my dollar float away. At least the CD has got some retained value, right? I mean, that's the comparison. Whether you think you do this or not, you do this. I'd rather have the pleasure today because tomorrow I won't even be able to afford this thing. Bitcoin changes your brain. All of a sudden, if you can make $1,000 and spend $998, that $2 of extra money is your savings. If you put it into Bitcoin in 10 years, when you need it, when you want to stop working or robots come for your job, it could be worth $400. See what I'm saying? Just a couple Satoshis could make all the difference. Get off zero. Create a path between you and Bitcoin so that you can save in Bitcoin. I don't have to encourage everybody to go onto a Bitcoin standard and all the complexities and the market variability day to day. There's a good possibility the dollar gets strong and Bitcoin becomes, more expensive, less expensive. I don't know. But long term, guys, the fiat system is broken. I hope today's episode helps you see that. You've got politicians who have printed money to get their power, which is fake voters and ballots. But you have politicians who want to reconnect money to power, oil. And in the end, the transition with Kevin Warsh at the Fed, with the way Trump and his family and everybody's doing Bitcoin, this is the future. It's the only thing that will hold government and policymakers accountable. And it holds you accountable. So get in on it. All right, guys, that's it for the show today. Don't forget to go to river.com. Use our link. Please do that. Okay, we've provided this incredible amount of value. You go put a couple bucks in there and we get a tiny little referral. You won't even, in fact, I don't think it even comes from you. I don't, right?
No.
Yeah. But do that. Create the pathway between you and real money, which right now is Bitcoin. As Kevin Warsh himself said, for everyone under 40, Bitcoin is the new gold. If you've got 10 years of life left, you could see that 100x multiplier. You got 20, 30 years of life left, you could see that 400x multiplier, because the entire world's monetary system will dump into Bitcoin. It has to. It has to. If we want to preserve liberty and freedom and that spark of independence lives in us, then Bitcoin is reconnecting our value, your work, the things you do, back to money. Because when that link was severed, we've been on a trajectory and it's not going to change. All right, guys, we are going to jump over into private. It's the first of the month. We got to start doing some private streaming, and we are going to see a real life Bigfoot. This is a conspiracy show. So we'll talk to you guys again tomorrow. Those of you that are going to stick around, this is going to be fascinating for you. Do you believe in Bigfoot? You might after this next video.